All right. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So this episode is going to be an interesting episode for multiple different reasons. So, first of all, you guys are familiar with Donnie, and I've interviewed Donnie a couple times in the last like 12 months. I had an interview with Donnie and Kevin. I had an interview with Donnie by himself. So today we're interviewing Donnie's brother, his older brother, which makes me believe that Donnie got his badassness from his older brother by all means. So I'm going to name this badass brother the screening boss because he's into this new business structure that he got into about maybe 18 months ago and is being very successful with it, and it's a SaaS platform. So I want you to tell audience a little bit more about you and what we're talking about today, Keith.
Yeah, hey, thanks. I appreciate that. And he did get all of his badass from me, by the way. Maybe he won't admit it, but he did. So we got into screening for background checks for pre-employment services, and it's been a lot of lessons learned in a short amount of time here. But it's been crazy. There's more than a billion background checks being run every single month, and thousands of background screening companies out there you can choose to do it from. So we've focused on the education of what's going on in the market and been able to identify a lot of things in this market that people need to educate themselves on and who they're using to run background checks and why, 'cause it's pretty important.
So I mean, out of that segmentation, you talk about like a billion background checks. I mean, like, what's the quantity you guys doing on a monthly? Like, how many background checks do you do every month?
We're just below about 1.2 million a month. So we have clients that do one or five background checks a year, and we have clients that run 5,000 background checks a month. So it just depends. There's no client too big, no client too small. And it ranges from retail customers to adult daycares to nanny services, staffing companies, HR consultants. So if you think about any industry where someone is entering someone's home, that person should probably have to undergo a background check prior to entering someone's home, whether it's AT&T for the cable guy or a plumbing business, electrical business. There's a lot of reasons why people go through the background check process.
So this going back to being like a badass. He comes on the show nonchalant. Yeah, I'm just doing this background check thing, and I'm saying, okay, how many are you doing? You say like how many per month did you say you're doing? Like 1 point what million?
Almost 1.2 million, yeah.
Oh, only 1.2 million. And so just for shits and giggles, right? What is the average price per background check?
Roughly right around $30.
So if anyone's listening that could do a little bit of math, just a little bit of math, I'm just saying. So let's say gracefully, roughly 30 mil. Okay, all right. Just continue with your story now. Okay, so now we've established the bar of where you are, right? Like if you could
Yeah.
kind of define yourself besides being nonchalant in 3 to 5 words, what would those 3 to 5 words be?
Oh my goodness. Thorough. Um, I don't know. I've been through so much in my career, especially in the medical side of the business as an executive, and my focus has always been on leadership, training, and referrals. Bringing people together and putting together a team that works well together and kicking some ass.
So obviously, I mean, you have a sales background, which kind of goes hand in hand with your younger brother. I mean, both you guys are hell of sale guys, right? So I mean, how does a sale guy transition from essentially being a salesperson into a SaaS platform that's essentially doing background checks? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so we about 4 years ago, I had an opportunity to come in and turn a small medical company around in the Daytona Beach area. Took us about three years, and we successfully turned that company around, and that company is no longer in existence. We sold that off successfully. I had no idea what we were going to do, or what I was going to do. And then a friend of mine who actually had bought this company called me, and he owns three companies. He didn't have time to run this business. And he said, I need someone to take this thing to the next level. So at that time, the focus of the background check company, because you have 12, 1,300 background check companies in the US, but only 11 or 12 actually own the software that it takes to run those background checks. So, not that your math is not right, but it's not always right because 270 of our customers are other background check companies that we run on their behalf. And those are done at a much lower rate than the average direct to retail customer paying a $30 price. But our focus now is direct to the consumer. So we taken it. So for the reason we own the software and we can go direct to consumer like that, we could do it cheaper and we can do it faster than just about anybody in the US market. So For that reason, we're getting a lot of business, and a lot of those background checks are adding up now
Mhm.
at that $30 price point. So, and for the most part, when you educate people on what they're doing and what they're looking for a background, we probably provide more information for half the money than anybody else in the United States as well. So it's amazing what you can do and what you can find, and if you're just educated just a little bit.
So I mean, you brought up that keyword education, like a couple different times. So like, I need to dive into that a little bit more because I mean, obviously, you get a background check, you want to see if it's a pedophile or not, if he has a DUI or not. Like, so I mean, what is there to be educated about a background check, particularly?
Well, there's four different criminal backgrounds you can run. The most common is what we call a nationwide criminal background check that covers all 50 states plus Guam and San Juan, Puerto Rico, and District of Columbia. The problem with that is 10% of the counties, which there's 3,300 counties here in the U.S., so roughly 330 of those counties do not report to the nationwide criminal database. So you're not getting accurate information when you run that. You can run a statewide criminal search, and that will pull information up from a specific state. Every time you run a state, though, there's an additional charge for every state that you run. You can run a county criminal report, which is probably the most thorough because all the records are kept at county levels. So if you run a county criminal report, you're getting every piece of information. The problem is you can't afford to run 3,300 counties, right? $10 to $15 per report, that's going to add up pretty quickly. Even if you're running 5 to 7 counties where that applicant has lived, that's going to add up. But then we have a nationwide federal criminal, which will then pull in everything together nationwide, and it's federal, so it will cross state lines. So when you run all four of those reports together, you're getting extremely accurate information. Not a whole lot can fall through the cracks in the net, and you're catching a lot more information. And we pull all that together. Plus, we add a couple things in like financial sanctions, Medicare, Medicaid fraud and abuse list, and the international Interpol criminal search database, as well as the 50 state sex offender registry search.
Mhm.
And we do a 7-year address history and social security number verification. We do all that for $34.
Wow, it's funny
So
that
yeah,
you brought up Interpol because I'm sitting here listening to you and like your tone of your voice and the way you're spitting off the information, it sounds like I'm talking to an FBI agent, like literally, like how. And I want to kind of like understand this, right? So just to take it back, like I want to go as far back as you can remember. Let's think of you as a kid. Were you the kid that was playing more like cowboys and Indians? Were you like cops and robbers? Like, how did you kind of like growing up? Like, what personality traits did you have?
I think it was cowboys and Indians because we grew up on a farm. So we had horses, we had animals, and everything else. And we had rifles and on one side of our horse, and we had a fishing pole on the other side of our horse, and we'd ride off into the back 20 and go fish and shoot anything that we could back then as kids. So I had two brothers growing up, an older one and a younger one. Um, the younger one, the older one spent 27 years in the Marine Corps, and super proud of him. But yeah, it's we had a lot of fun growing up. We were poor farm kids.
Hmm. So do you think that was part of like your initial drive? I mean, obviously you're saying you were a poor farm kid, but obviously now like you're on the other side of the track. So I mean, like, was that something that fed you to become who you are right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think my challenge to myself was that I did not want my kids to grow up the way I grew up. Not knowing what I knew now, how I grew up defined who I am today, and my work ethic, and showing up every day and pushing through tough situations. That was all developed from a childhood of getting up at 5:30 in the morning doing chores before the bus ever showed up to go to school. My dad was a truck driver. My mom worked two jobs. She'd go sew jeans at Lee Jeans in the morning and go work at McDonald's in the afternoon. So most of the time, the three of us would get up, make our own breakfast, do our own chores, go to school on the bus, come home, and make our own dinner, and have dinner ready for our mom by the time she got home. So we had a lot of responsibility, and it sucked sometimes not being able to go. Our closest neighbor with kids was a mile away. So if we had wanted to go play with our neighbors, we had to get on our BMX bikes and pedal a mile on a gravel road just to go play.
Wow.
And if our chores weren't done, we wouldn't be able to sit down for a couple of days. And I promise you that never happened again. So
It's a different time and place, right? For sure.
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it
so
is. It absolutely is.
yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm visualizing, three brothers riding on a bike. So like, how do you go from being on the farm, riding on a bike, living that life to then going to college for like a business degree? Like, how does that happen? Like, when did you say, okay, you know what, I'm on a farm, but I want to understand business?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, so I'm in the very small percentage of people that actually never went to college. I graduated high school. I went to college for one day. I couldn't take it. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. So I went into the military, joined the Air Force, spent my time in the Air Force, got out, and I bought drugs and medical supplies for hospitals. And
Mm,
so when I got out, I worked for a long-term care facility, buying drugs and supplies for a pharmacy. And then one day, my sales rep that was calling on me for IV pumps didn't show up. The owner came in the next day, apologized, said that he had quit, and I badgered him for 6 months to hire me as a sales rep because it's something I thought I could do.
mm,
And he gave me an opportunity when I was 23 or 24 years old to get into sales without a college education. And as soon as the minute he let me in, I took off running, and nobody could tell me to slow down or stop or anything else. I broke every sales record in the book for the first 3 years I was there. And then I advanced my career with a few other companies. And then within 5 years of getting into medical sales, I was either the director or national vice president for several companies, running sales forces and teaching people how to do all this. And very likely in every boardroom that I sat in for the next 20 years, I was the only person in there without a degree.
mm.
But absorbing information and learning things as I went, taught me a lot about leadership and leading people and doing some great things. And I had a great career, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. So some of my closest friends in the world are from that industry and that time frame. So I had a great time.
So I mean, it kind of leads me to a question, and I had this question, I've asked it, maybe a dozen times on this podcast, is about like education versus real world experience. So like you're a living, breathing example of not necessarily going to the traditional alternative of education or getting a degree, but you pretty much got an MBA by doing it for real, by going out in the field and learning it and adapting live.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky along the way. A lot of the companies I worked for invested in their employees. So I was sent off to sales and marketing training, leadership training courses. Got to go through a lot of really cool stuff. In one company, they actually put us through physiology and anatomy for 2 straight weeks
Mhm.
to learn about the human body and the devices we were selling. So we got a good education on a lot of these products that we were selling in and out of the hospitals. And yeah, I feel like I probably have a PhD by now, and
Mhm.
in just a whole different world. And I'm sure if I went to a college,
Looks like we reconnected. Did you hear me? Gotta love the internet, people. Gotta love the internet.
yeah, like now, not sure what happened.
Yeah, you just kind of dropped out, but this is all part of the game.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can't see you, but I can definitely hear you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it says I've got full bars. Sure what's going on. So in the video, on to the video.
Hmm. Looks like you just dropped out again.
I'll turn the. Hmm.
Okay, looks like you popped back up again. And then you went back out again. This is when I insert Jeopardy music for the placeholder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I just tried to reset it, and
You sound clear now.
okay.
There you go. All right. Yep, you're back.
All right. Perfect.
So let's just recap that again. I don't know if you remember everything that you said, but let's just touch bases on that again.
Okay. Hit me with the question one more time so I can remember everything.
Let me rewind it back. This is beautiful because I mean we're live, so this is problems when you have podcasts. You just have to figure shit out and just keep rolling with it. So I'll just roll into like another question and it'll come
Well,
back.
you know what? Funny. It's funny you say that though, because that's the one thing that I've learned throughout my entire career that I've taught my kids. And if
Mm,
you ask, I have three teenagers. If they say, "Hey, what's the one thing that Dad has taught you?" I guarantee the three words they would all say is "figure it out." And
yep.
I tell people that's the secret to life. It's a secret to personal life and business life is when you get somewhere, just figure it out. It's not that hard. And I think that's what's propelled me in a lot of things in this company and this business and in
Mm,
my past is just figuring stuff out. Too many people want to sit back and let somebody else work on their problems, and that's just not a good answer to have. You need to go out there and fix your own stuff and keep going.
yeah, yeah. So I mean that leads me to like another question. I mean obviously there's hurdles and we just encountered like a technical hurdle, right? So I mean in your career, obviously there had to have been dozens of hurdles. So what's like the biggest hurdle that you can remember that you had to overcome?
There's been a lot of hurdles. I mean, especially when you work for large corporations. I mean, there's been times where you walk into the office on a Monday morning and your entire division of 47 people has been let go,
Mm,
and with no warning, no preconceived conceptions of what was going on. It's just the company decided that your entire division is going to go, no matter how well you've been performing or how well you've been doing, and all of a sudden you find yourself driving back home and figuring out, oh my God, what am I going to do next? You kind of freak out for a minute, and but it's easy now to look back and say every time something like that happens, something always works out. It always does. When you're going through it, it's not always the easiest time because you're panicking about taking care of a family of five and health insurance and money coming in for this or that or anything else. So, but that's probably the biggest hurdle you overcome, especially when you're in the executive world in sales. Is it can be very cutthroat at times, and when you least expect it, the carpet gets pulled out from underneath your feet. So, adjusting and networking. I can tell you now, I don't know of the 7 or 8 jobs I had in the executive world for 27 years. I can only remember using a resume one time.
hmm,
Every other time it was people that I knew through people that I knew and referrals and people saying, hey, if you guys want an all-star, hire this guy because he'll turn your company around. And it's not because I know everything, it's because I'm willing to work hard. I've always considered myself to be the Pete Rose of this, the sales side of the business, because I will outwork you.
hmm.
I will always outwork you. And that was Pete Rose's motto. Is he wasn't a good baseball player. He was an average baseball player, but he outworked everybody and he put so much of himself into it. And I feel the same way. I mean, you put that time and effort into something and good things are going to happen. So,
Hmm. I mean, that's a definitely interesting philosophy. I mean, obviously, outworking everyone can kind of get you to the next level. So, I mean, essentially, you outworked everyone and you sold that other company. So, at that point in time, when you sold the other company, did you not think about retiring? Like again, I mean, obviously, you're an entrepreneur through and through, and it's hard for an entrepreneur to stop. So, why
Yeah.
did you then jump into like this next space, which was uniquely different than what you were used to?
Yeah, I think is because when my business partner called me and said, what do you know about background checks? And I started doing a little research. I got really excited because it was something new, something that I had been part of before. Um, checks that go on about the industry, and not that there's a lot of information out there, but there's a lot of not good information out there on, on what people are doing. So I started talking to companies about what they were currently doing for the process. And it was all over the board, and not many people actually even knew what kind of background check they were running. They just knew that they were running one because they used some company that was charging them $70 to run that. They didn't really know what in so we do background checks and we do marketing and things like that. It always includes exactly what that background includes. So you know what kind of information you're getting. So we want to educate people to do. We can do more for less. You can get more information on that person. Use background checks as an insurance policy. You don't wait 6 months down the road to find out you've got a felon working for you, and all of a sudden things come up missing, or there starts to be problems, and then you have a higher turnover rate than normal, and higher turnover rates kill companies. It's expensive to turn over. We want to find good people early and fast, and maybe weed out some apples early on, and we can help you do that.
Did you get back? Technical difficulties are not your friend. Not your friend. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I could hear you now. Definitely.
Okay. Did you catch any of that?
It it's so funny because it was like, and then it looped over and played it all over like 10 times the speed.
Oh
And I was just
shit.
kind of like, I think I got what he said. I don't know how it's going
Yeah.
to record. At this point in time, I would say we got to do another episode. I mean, I have no clue what this content is going to come out like because it's like too
Okay.
chopped. But we can still
Yeah, I
try.
don't know if it's a time of day and so many users on the network here in the condo, or what it is. I mean, I got the Wi-Fi box right next to my damn computer, so I was hoping that would take care of some of these issues.
Yeah, I'm pulling down 350 megs right now, so I'm good on my end as far as my bandwidth. My upload is like 60. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
I know. I'm sure it's on my end. I was on a hotspot. I just switched over back to the Wi-Fi. It's hit or miss for me. Which one works better on any given day? Usually my hotspot though. I've never had my hotspot cut out on me like that. So there must be a ton of people on.